Hey, it's Kelly from MXHideout. I recently got a question, someone asking if you can use a racing oil for two-stroke and just mix it at a leaner ratio if you're riding at lower RPM. So why would they ask this question? To give you an example, let's say they're riding a YZ125 two-stroke motocross bike and they're using AMSOIL Dominator two-stroke oil at 32:1. AMSOIL Dominator is basically their highest performance oil for racing two-strokes. It's for a high heat application, so riding at wide open throttle. It gives really good lubricity and protection to make the engine last as long as possible. You could also take the 927 castor oil, which is an even dirtier oil, but provides good protection. However, if you're trail riding or riding at a lower RPM, running this racing oil or high performance oil, it's not gonna burn quite as efficiently. You might notice symptoms like excessive smoking. It'll be blue smoke because the oil is burning blue coming out the exhaust. It might foul spark plugs more frequently. It's probably gonna clog up the power valves and even potentially leave more unburnt deposits on the piston, the rings, and just everywhere in the cylinder if you constantly ride at a low RPM and don't get the temperature up high enough. So back to the question, can you run a leaner mixture, so less oil? So going back to 32:1, can you run it at 40:1 or 50:1? And based on my experience, yes, you can. However, there is a caution. Riding at a lower RPM means that there's going to be less heat from less friction in the engine, so it doesn't need as much oil to provide enough lubricity and keep the engine running strong and prevent wear and tear. However, if you are riding at a higher RPM occasionally, the lack of lubrication, so the less amount of oil, isn't going to provide as much protection for that engine. This means that you could be causing more wear and tear if you're using less oil but running at a higher RPM occasionally. So is this just a compromise? Well, yes, kind of, but is there another alternative solution? In my opinion, yes. You can actually use a cleaner burning oil if you're typically running at a lower RPM. For example, Maxima has the Super M, I believe, smokeless oil, which is a cleaner burning oil, but if you still run it at that 32:1, it still should provide good lubricity without causing extra wear and tear by running a lower oil mixture rate, so 32:1 compared to 40 or 50:1. But I also need to say that changing your oil mixture is not a substitute for changing your jetting. For example, if your bike is running really rich, maybe it's hard to start when hot, it's smoking excessively, or it's sputtering, it's just running way too rich, this doesn't mean you should reduce the amount of oil that you're using, especially if you're riding at a higher RPM, because less oil means less protection. Instead, you need to focus on the jetting. You need to pick the oil mixture ratio based on how you ride. So the higher the RPM, the more oil you need. And then if it's still too rich, then you need to reduce the fuel mixture by going leaner on the jetting. And did you know that if you're reducing the amount of oil, you're actually making the jetting richer? Because if there's less oil, that means there's gonna be more fuel in the mixture, making it richer. Did you find this helpful? Did this make sense? If you don't agree with me, I'd love to hear what you have to say. Let me know in the comments below. And if you're new to two-stroke carb tuning, the best place to start is with the air mixture screw. This can be done in 5 minutes or less. I got a free guide on how to do that. The link to that is in the description below. I'm Kelly from MXHideout. Ride safe, have fun.